The most successful boycott in contemporary American history was the Great Bud Light Boycott of 2023. I am 3 weeks sober today, so no beer for me, but I remember back then being in a bar in Algona, Iowa, which is an all-American cornfield locale, where I was informed by a bartender that they just stopped serving queer beer after Anheuser-Busch decided to feature a trans woman named Dylan Mulvaney in their spring marketing campaign for Bud Light. I responded, of course, by ordering an even gayer drink called Watermelon White Claw, and pulled my phone out to do some research. Apparently, the commander-in-chief of the boycott army was ordained minister Kid Rock, who riled up a cabal of conservative reactionaries to spearhead what was the first prudent example of right-wing cancel culture. In a single month, Bud Light sales dropped by 20%, allowing a widely acknowledged symbol of Latino camaraderie, the Modelo, to become the #1 sold beer in the country. For over a calendar year, it appeared that Bud Light had fallen. Not only was its job being taken by a Mexican, but as I mentioned, the mere act of ordering a Bud Light in a red county was like wearing a MAGA hat in Portland, Oregon. But 6 months ago, things began to turn around when Bud Light featured a friend of the show, universally loved comedian and the least trans person in America, Shane Gillis, in their 2025 marketing campaign, securing the brand in the hearts and minds of heterosexual American alcoholics as a certifiably chill and not gay brand. But Tesla might not get so lucky. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Andrew Callaghan, and you're watching 5Cast, our weekly news report here at Channel 5, the largest crowd-funded independent newsroom in the world. Today we're going to be speaking to the godfather and alleged founder of the Tesla boycott movement, Joel Lava, who kicked things off in Burbank, California shortly after Elon's controversial, probably Sig Heil salute that he threw up on Inauguration Day. Joel is not a fan of Doge's mass firings and federal budget cuts, and hopes to weaken the Trump administration by lowering Tesla's stock price.
As a kid, I always asked, why didn't the German Jews fight back against the Nazis?
We're also going to be sitting down with a militant anti-car activist from Seattle who is engaged in the vandalism and destruction of not only Teslas but all cars, especially Waymos.
I don't know if you saw the Waymo caught on fire.
And frequently organizes calculated traffic disruptions to advance the agenda of the car-free movement. But before we get into all that, I would like to remind you guys that we actually do this show twice a week. First on Tuesday and today on Sunday. But our Tuesday show is available exclusively on our Patreon at www.patreon.com/channel5. It costs $5 a month to sign up, but gives you access to an entire catalog of exclusive, unreleased, and extended content ranging from back in the all gas no brakes days until now. It sucks that we have to panhandle this way, but the only other option is finding an investor, which would compromise our ability to have total creative control. Now, before we get into the world of politics, vandalism, boycotts, and break down the possibility of a dystopian technocracy, I want to share some positive news as a reminder to all you guys that there is still kindness, love, and joy all around the world. So let's get into it. AJ Soprano was 13 when he figured out that his fictional father was in the mafia. Lil Wayne was 13 when Birdman discovered him in Hollygrove. I was 13 when my parents divorced, and Sophia Arcuri from Park Ridge, Illinois, just received the highest IQ score of any 13-year-old in American and by extension global history, hitting 162, significantly higher than a 13-year-old Stephen Hawking and Albert Einstein, inducting Sophia into the Mensa Club alongside Steve Martin and Abby Shudo. The benefits of becoming a Mensa member include free trips to Singapore to network with rocket scientists, and the ability to refer to yourself as a genius in a public setting without backlash. Sophia's mother Cecilia is quoted as saying, "My daughter didn't study at all. This is actually crazy," which if true is big news for the future of humanity. Sophia, congratulations, and I hope that as you escape the confines of child labor restrictions, you'll ignore all future job inquiries from the CIA, Mossad, or Chinese secret police, and instead pick a career path that benefits humanity as a whole. Other good news, the Inter-American Court of Human Rights has just ruled that uncontacted tribes have the right to remain in isolation, not just from explorers, missionaries, and YouTubers asking them about their skibbity toilet body count, but from energy companies seeking to invade their homelands to drill and mine for natural resources. As we covered in our previous videos, Havasupai uranium mine protest, and Biden's apology to Native Americans, there is a never-ending friction between greedy transnational energy corporations and indigenous tribes, who care for their land as opposed to pimping it out for profit.
All of this land, they look at it and they only see shrubs, rocks. But all this is medicine.
It's been said that during early westward expansion, many of the Arizona tribes sold things like mountains, plateaus, and fields to American pioneers for close to nothing, often joking, "You want me to throw in an extra cloud before you get out of here?" You see, before colonization, while there was territory, warfare, and bloodshed, the relationship between man and nature was never one of complete dominance. There was a common understanding that the grandiose, often apocalyptic force of Earth was never something that man could control or own, but rather would have to learn to exist with and cooperate operation and stewardship. But energy companies don't care about that and are invested in the maximum profit yield over the shortest period of time, which in the case of the Navajo reservation led to generations of cancer, air radiation, pollution, and uranium poisoning. Thankfully though, the lasting impacts of those disasters have led to increased resistance from activists and tribal governments against resource extraction, which, like in the case of the Dakota Access Pipeline, significantly slowed down construction and brought a great deal of public attention. However, uncontacted tribes don't have these privileges. They don't know what the hell is going on. National Geographic estimates there are over 75 uncontacted tribes remaining, mostly along the equator in the Amazon rainforest, Papua New Guinea, and of course, North Sentinel Island, where American missionary Jonathan Chow, not to be confused with incel Jonathan Cho, won the Darwin Award back in 2018 while trying to convert the hostile North Sentinelese to Christianity, only to be sent to his maker by way of bow and arrow. Normally, in these kinds of situations, it would be up to the local police, state, or international courts to handle as far as the Sentinelese consequences go. But because of the new ruling by the Inter-American Court of Human Rights, the law will automatically honor any uncontacted tribe's right to voluntary isolation from both content, Christ, and capital. So shout out to the goddamn court. Looks like I'm getting word of something new. Apparently, for the first time since the ruling, the law has been broken by a US tourist and YouTuber who is being held by the Indian Navy after making a selfie stick landing on the shores of North Sentinel Island. We've got Saddam with the latest on scene. Saddam, are you there?
Yeah, Andrew. Okay, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
I'm here on the shores of Anabat Island, where it's clearly monsoon season. 24-year-old content creator Mikhailo Pulyakov was just taken into custody. Police say he arrived illegally to North Sentinel Island after traveling 22 miles in a small inflatable boat from right where I'm standing, which is insane. After landing, he filmed a 5-minute GoPro video and fucking fled. And he fled after leaving behind a coconut and Diet Coke as a gift to the tribes people. Thankfully, he made no contact with the Sentinelese, as they would have killed him with spears and have no immunity to common diseases like measles and the flu.
Thank you, Saddam. All right, folks, we'll be back after the commercial break. Hey, what's up, guys? Oh, shit. Hey, man, thanks for that web link. It's really working. I don't know if you guys missed the memo, but we just dropped an entire feature film. That's right, a full-blown movie at www.dearkellyfilm.com.
DearKellyFilm.com.
It's an action-packed movie that revolves around the life and times of Kelly Johnson, aka Kelly J. Patriot.
Kobe Bryant was assassinated by the Quins!
Come here, Nazi, you're going to Guantanamo.
Oh my gosh, what did I do? Am I getting canceled?
The Democrats don't like you, they're gonna cancel you.
It documents his semi-estranged family and their attempt to pull him out of the rabbit hole.
Are you selling baby parts, yes or no? Don't tread on me! Don't even think about it!
I don't want to say too much, but it's a good movie. If you guys want to watch it, it would mean a lot. www.dearkellyfilm.com. It's available for rent and buy. You can rent it for $5.55, or you can buy it for $15.55.
www.dearkellyfilm.com. www.dearkellyfilm.com. www.dearkelly.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to 5Cast. Let's get to the main event of today's broadcast, the Tesla boycotts. If you haven't heard, these demonstrations have been rocking the world from Rotterdam to Rhode Island, leading to a 36% decline in Tesla stock over the first fiscal quarter of the year.
We're boycotting Tesla. I sold my Tesla. I traded it in for a Subaru, actually.
Shut up, Elon! Go home, Elon!
Since then, Trump has threatened to label these demonstrators as domestic terrorists, which would then qualify them for extrajudicial detention without due process at facilities like Guantanamo Bay, Adams County Detention Center, and my favorite, South Texas Processing Center. Now, if you're watching this and you get snatched up by the feds, remember that while detainees aren't entitled to hand soap or phone calls, there's no commissary system set up, which means you're legally entitled to unlimited snacks every day. And each solitary confinement cell has a help button, which may as well be a Capri Sun and graham cracker portal. So just keep hitting that button over and over again if you get jammed up. It's a good psychic device to remind yourself and the guards that you have the power. All right, guys, back to the boycotts. As I see them, the boycotts are a broader offshoot of the anti-Trump Stop the Coup protest movement, which I covered briefly in New York when it first popped off. Here's a
Not like us. The billionaire shouldn't be able to tell all the rest of us what to do.
Stop the billionaire coup. Elon Musk is literally raiding our government and destroying our country.
Within a couple days, the anti-Elon fervor began to target Tesla, being that it's his most notable company. And beyond the company's stock price dropping, there's been some real vandalism in the these streets. We're talking about graffiti, firebombing dealerships, setting supercharging stations ablaze. It's gotten so bad that the FBI has launched a special task force to bring these perpetrators to justice. And on March 20th of this year, the U.S. Attorney General announced felony charges against 3 separate individuals. One defendant, armed with an AR-15, was arrested after throwing approximately 8 Molotov cocktails at a Tesla dealership in Salem, Oregon. Another was arrested in Loveland, Colorado, after attempting to light Teslas on fire with a Molotov cocktail, which unfortunately did not explode as desired. And in Charleston, South Carolina, a third defendant wrote profane messages against President Trump around a Tesla charging station before successfully lighting all the stations on fire again with a Molotov cocktail.
I've made it clear, if you take part in the wave of domestic terrorism against Tesla properties, we will find you, arrest you, and put you behind bars.
But still, the threat of a terror charge hasn't worked at all to slow things down. Even in the old country, that's right, Europe, where apparently they care about us.
This fire at a Tesla dealership near Rome destroyed 17 cars.
In the wake of this global catastrophe, Elon's personal net worth has fallen by roughly $121 billion since December. While the billionaire initially acknowledged, "It's costing me a lot to do this job," and that the stock of everyone who holds a Tesla has gone down in half, a recent appearance in Wisconsin suggests that Elon is not so worried. In Wisconsin, he was quoted as saying, "Long term, I think that Tesla stock is going to do fine. So, maybe it's a buying opportunity." Despite this newfound optimism, he still espouses the belief that these boycotts are fundamentally anti-American. Elon even promoted a conspiracy that the boycotts are being funded and coordinated by a larger Soros-funded group. It fascinates me that even with Trump's open, cheerleader-like support of that one small Middle Eastern country by the sea, people like Elon are still leaning on 2020-era George Soros tropes about a globalist cabal. But some things never change. All right, without further ado, here is our first interview of today's Fivecast with the LA-based actor, devout Democrat, and lead organizer of the nation's first Tesla boycott, Mr. Joel Lava. Mr. Lava, thank you so much for making the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So my first question is, how does it feel?
It's feeling pretty good in the midst of it not being a good situation. Our movement's clearly successful. And I feel like part of the reason it grows is because every week there's like a new horrible thing that happens. So it's great to see more people getting activated, but the motivation for it I wish wasn't there.
What's the most recent horrible thing that's happened that comes to mind?
The most recent horrible thing was him trying to buy off the Wisconsin election, and he did get defeated. So that's good, but it's just showing the power of money in politics. And I think that combined with the Cory Booker speech, I think we're going to see a lot of people coming out even more, but they're going after Social Security now pretty hardcore, and I think that's the latest big horrible thing.
Yeah. It's kind of fascinating because I went to a Defend the Border convoy, and a lot of people voted for Trump because they were upset that their Social Security checks were so small.
I know people that's getting maybe $500 a month.
Okay.
I mean, how can you even live on $1,000 a month?
Especially now.
Yeah, right. I make $1,200 a month. Can you live on $1,200 a month?
Yeah, like they say, that people are surprised that the face-eating leopards are eating their faces. I don't know what to say to those people. This is everything that is happening was forewarned before the election. It's like paint by numbers. There's nothing surprising that's happening. And so how these people don't know about it, I can't explain it.
So recently there was a threat that was leveraged by President Trump, threatening to designate all Tesla boycott, Tesla takedown activists as domestic terrorists. And you, as not the godfather, but one of the OG ringleaders of the first flagship Tesla boycott here in California, are you worried about a RICO coming down?
No, I'm not. I am worried that there could be charges, and it would hurt me a lot financially to get representation if I can't get pro bono. But I'm not worried in the righteousness of my cause and the fact that I'm a law-abiding American citizen.
Are you ready to die for the cause?
I'm not ready to die for Tesla takedown. That's a very intense question. As a kid, I always asked, like, why didn't the German Jews fight back against the Nazis? Why did they just accept it? And that's kind of been a formational thing for me, is I have to fight back. And I've just told, like, my friends, it's like, if they're gonna throw us in the gulags either way, I may as well bloody some noses going down. So I don't want to just willingly get on the boxcar, metaphorically speaking. So I don't want to die though. For democracy, for our country, for the great America experiment of 250 years, yeah, I'm willing to die for that, just like a soldier is. I'm not saying I'm a soldier, but I get that sentiment is I'm not gonna go down without fighting. And that's one of the reasons I'm willing to put my name out there in my face, is just kind of like, come at me, bro. It's like, they're going after immigrants and foreign students. They're not going after Americans yet. I'm sure that's part of their plan. I just feel like, especially with the numbers now, there's hundreds of thousands of protesters now. Are they going to arrest all of us? No. Trump's entire business model, his whole life is bluster. It's to countersue you until you give up. But he's a coward. He always backs down when fully confronted, and I'm not backing down. So I guess they can say whatever they want.
Do you believe there's like a separate kingdom within heaven that's like waiting there for martyrs?
I do not. Well, I'm Jewish, so we technically don't believe in heaven.
What? Wait, so what happens after you die in the Jewish faith?
It's kind of abstract and vague, but there's not like a heaven with like the pearly gates.
Wait, I'm confused. The Torah is the Old Testament.
Correct.
And the Old Testament doesn't mention heaven?
Not really, no.
Is that a New Testament creation?
Yes.
Well, then it's probably not true.
I mean, we don't know till we die.
Judaism was the first Abrahamic religion. Mm-hmm. Was Abraham like a Jewish Jesus?
No, there is no Jesus, and for Jews, there's been no Messiah.
But Abraham thought of the religion.
He was like the OG Tesla protester. No, well, Abraham, according to the Bible, was a man who was being spoken to by God. And so you have this man who's hearing a voice in his head, and God is telling him to take his son to a mountaintop and kill his son. And he was going to do it until God said, no, wait, at the last second.
Oh,
that's the story.
So that's interesting. So Abraham is not an allegorical character. He's a real life human being.
For Jews, he is.
Okay. I feel like
so
Jesus. Well, Jesus definitely existed. Probably not in the form that we think he did. But I have a theory about Jesus.
Okay, let's hear it.
Well, I think that Mary had an affair with someone in the neighborhood.
You think?
Well, I mean, she's pregnant and her husband is like, oh my God, it's a miracle. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, we haven't even, gone all the way. This is crazy. And she's like, I know, right? Must be God's child. I imagine the neighbor's like looking over the fence, be like, oh my God, just fucking telling him it's God's child. And then the kid's born and she feels so bad, especially with the patriarchy of that time, that she just rolls with it. So here's this baby who thinks that his dad is God, and she doesn't have the heart to tell him like, no, your dad's actually lives across the street. So he grows up his whole life thinking that like he's the man. And I feel like that's why his death was particularly hard for her, because she wanted to just be like, you're not the son of God. But he was already being crucified by the Romans.
I think there's a lot of credibility with that theory.
That makes more sense than the other theory.
Which is?
That Mary got impregnated by God. It's impossible.
She could have been artificially fertilized, and we have our president who's like the biggest fertilizer, he says.
Wait, I thought Elon was the IVF guy.
No, Elon doesn't need IVF apparently.
Well, Elon is what's called a rationalist. You're familiar with the subculture? Mm-hmm. He believes in the creation of like super babies. Mm-hmm. Rationalists believe in like optimizing humanity for maximum productivity. So he believes in artificially inseminating intelligent women who he thinks are like of a superior cognitive ability.
I thought he was like Nick Cannon. Are all these women getting pregnant? It's not through sex?
Nick Cannon is definitely having sex with his baby mamas.
I thought Musk was too.
No, he's not.
Oh, really?
Half of Musk's baby mamas, he's not even, gone to first base with. He's not in love with them. He just thinks they're really smart, and I want the kid to be smart or have, We got
to get this message out.
Aryan features, probably.
That's like a whole story right there. That's amazing.
Maybe that's worth boycotting.
Yeah, that'll be our next boycott.
Is it safe to call you the godfather of this movement?
It is not at all, no. The movement is, first of all, it's TeslaTakedown.com is people have really helped it grow, but it's a decentralized movement. There's no leader. It's like Occupy Wall Street, which, by the way, should have had a leader at some point. But no, there's people like my protests are in Burbank, and we're getting up to 300. But for instance, the Pasadena protests are like perfectly located in the downtown Pasadena. They're dense, and they're getting 300 to 500 people.
But I mean, going back to the very beginning, you were one of the first people to protest.
As far as I know.
So let's talk about that very first protest that you went to. Was that your idea?
Oh yeah, it was definitely my idea. I've always been politically active. I've made my own political videos for 25 years. And then I volunteer for certain organizations. I canvass, not all the time, but when I can. And so I've always just had that bug. And I actually was somewhat of a Elon Musk fan. I bought into the hype up until he bought Twitter, or right before he bought Twitter. And then obviously he started to like espouse his views. I started to learn more. He opened it up to Nazis. And I loved Twitter as much as anyone can love Twitter. And so that just pissed me off. And then obviously he got connected with Trump, but no one knew when we had the election, no one knew he was the co-president. No one could have predicted it. As much as we could predict a lot of things, not that. And I would say there was a turning point for a lot of us was the Sig Heil. I already hated the Cybertruck and wanted to do like flyers or something on it. I don't want to vandalize, but like put like a vinyl static clean sticker that just peels off, or flyers just insulting the drivers. But that was kind of where I was at. And then the Sig Heil happened, and I saw someone posted, they said, when you declare yourself a Nazi, you're a direct threat to my family. And that was like a paradigm shift for me, because it becomes now, if I don't do everything in my power to stop this, then I'll never live with myself. And so the obvious, easiest thing to do was to go directly at his primary source of wealth, which is Tesla. And I was with a friend, and I was just like, we have to do something. And so we made 2 signs and stood at the Burbank Tesla. And the next day, 2 more friends, so there was 4. And I've not ever done anything like this. Like I said, I'm involved politically, but not protests like this. And like there were honks, like the horns, like people were like really supportive driving by, and it was just like, whoa, and it just kept building.
And so going back to the pre-Sig Heil, pre-Twitter stuff, what were the main factors that made you admire Elon Musk?
I saw him as a very bold visionary. I knew he didn't start Tesla. I knew that. But I saw Tesla was having trouble going somewhere, and there's something about what Elon does. He asks for forgiveness, not permission kind of attitude. He's like bold. I actually know, for instance, my friend from high school is the county judge in Austin, which is arguably more powerful than the mayor. And so they've got flown out to Vegas to go on the tunnel, the boring tunnel. And then obviously Elon Musk has moved to Austin. So my friend is like involved, and he's just like, they've told Elon like, you can't do this or this, and he's like, okay, and he just does it anyway. And then the people are like, what do we do? And they just, well, he's bringing business. So the reason I liked Elon is something about his aggression and his ability to like see how to like take government money to turn that into profit. And he had good ideas, whether or not they're going to work. Everything he promises doesn't happen. Like everything's like, we're going to Mars, he said in 2025. The Boring Company is doing nothing. But we're all on the same page with him as far as visions for a wonderful future of technology.
And to clarify, the Boring Company, they had a plan to create like a hyperlane from Los Angeles to Vegas, and then additional freeways or tunnels beneath the LA freeways to alleviate traffic.
Yeah, it's within cities to like get to the airports from a downtown, and it just all falls apart. But you read articles like quotes from city managers and mayors. They're enthralled with this like guy who comes in. I don't know how a guy who's so socially awkward. I don't know if he's on the spectrum. I assume he is. But this guy who's like socially awkward just wins people over. It's just the wealth, and he's hit a few home runs early, and then that's a lesson for all of us. Is like just because someone hits a few home runs doesn't mean that they're going to keep hitting them. It happens all the time. Someone buys a stock and it goes through the roof. They think they're an amazing day trader, and the casino always wins.
Of course. So going all the way into the protest, so you and one friend are out there at the Burbank Tesla showroom. How fast did it become just you and a couple of friends to like hundreds, if not thousands of people?
It literally was geometric progression. That means it just kept doubling. So 2 to 4, the next weekend 15, the next weekend 30, the next 60, the next 100, and then we got up to 300. It was crazy. It was almost crazy how like mathematical it was. Like, because I'm new to this, I've learned some ins and outs of protesting, good way to make a sign and the good chants and all these things, and it's just very interesting. And the other very interesting thing is the average age is 75, I would say. And I like to say the reason that everyone at these protests is so old, let me rephrase it. The reason that there's no young people at these protests is the same reason Donald Trump won, because they also didn't show up and vote. So whatever that reason is, because those people showed up for George Floyd. So I think a lot of the younger generation is also like I was before I learned about Elon. They just think he's this cool tech guy who does really cool stuff, and like, why would I protest this guy?
I mean, I would say like 75% of the people in my social sphere didn't vote at all. Or if they did, it was for a third-party candidate, mostly because of Israel Palestine. That's the most common reason. And also, there was a lot of like spoiler candidates like Jill Stein who came into the picture and promised, you know, that she would end the genocide and that both candidates are in support of this war and therefore both part of the war machine and compromised by this system.
That's crazy that foreign entanglement played such a huge role.
Yeah, definitely.
Whether or not I agree with their positions, it's crazy that it had so much sway.
Yeah, I mean, I even interviewed Jill Stein and I was like, wow, those are great ideas. And then the election happens, Trump wins, and she's gone. Literally vanished from the face of the earth. And so I think that we've learned for next election, 2028, to be very wary of third-party candidates who promise a solution to this whole thing.
I had to suffer through Ralph Nader in 2000, where George W. won. That was a significant pull of votes from Gore. I've never, my people, my friends, we're never going to forget that lesson. We learned it the hard way. It led to 9/11 in Iraq.
I'm really happy you brought that up, because like our generation doesn't remember Ralph Nader. You know, I was in 5th grade when Obama got elected. You know, so all that like Bush era and, you know, those third-party spoiler candidates from the early elections, like in 2000, that's just something that's totally escaped our collective consciousness.
I mean, it's always been there. It's how Bill Clinton got elected in '92, because Ross Perot ruined everything. And so I don't have a problem with spoiler candidates. I support democracy. I have a problem with poorly informed voters who put us where we are.
I think that also, too, because of some of the censorship that happened in 2020, particularly with right-wingers, there was this idea that conservatism was the new counterculture. And also there's this conception that if a social media platform is removing your posts, it's because you're telling the truth, not because you're spreading misinformation. So it's kind of like the 2020 social media censorship was a collective Tiananmen Square moment for so many Trump supporters, where they were like, all right, if I can't talk about the vaccine on Facebook, I must be telling the truth. And so they were able to convince themselves that Trump was like a people's hero against the machine, and now we're seeing he's bringing the machine closer than it's ever been.
That's true. I mean, it's like, that's why conspiracies, if you don't believe the conspiracy, then you're part of it. Do you really feel like, I'm not interviewing you, but do you feel like conservatism really became countercultural? Because I don't believe that, but you would know better than anyone.
It didn't become countercultural, but many young conservatives, especially young dudes, young white dudes in particular, felt like, all right, I see Trump on the Nelk Boys and Joe Rogan and Theo Von, and they didn't really feel like they had a people's candidate that was on their level and spoke to them like a regular person. The Biden kind of Obama-Clinton machine, that kind of political dynasty, they felt like didn't reflect anyone's perspective. And you know, I think that in a lot of ways, the Democrats are paying for what they did to Bernie in 2016, basically disenfranchising him and keeping him out of the picture. Every person that I know would have voted for Bernie Sanders. I can't think of a single friend of mine, I'm from Seattle, that did not support Bernie Sanders. You know, but it's also, maybe it would have been easier for Trump to take him down because he is like openly more sympathetic to communist regimes.
I have a whole spiel on Bernie, and I don't want. I loved Bernie before you were born, like since the '90s. Yeah, my politics align with him. There was a reason Trump was saying, Bernie, he's a good guy. You guys should vote for. If Bernie got the nomination, it would have been a bloodbath.
You think so?
And again, I align with him politically, but as a candidate, I don't. Oh God, his communist background. He wrote like crazy porn fiction at one point.
Bernie?
Yeah.
He doesn't even seem like he's a horny guy.
He's let's see, Jewish. You think that wouldn't have come into play? Oh my God.
And he took his honeymoon in the Soviet Union.
Yeah. My spiel on Bernie is, I don't think he got taken down in 2016. I think you can't spend a career attacking the Democratic Party and then 9 months before an election come in and say, I want to lead you, when you're going against a woman who spent 30 years building relationships. And then to also say that about Bernie when Obama proves that wrong. We had a black man with a Muslim name come out of nowhere and take down the deep state Hillary like that. So he proved it can be done.
But I think that with Obama's policies too, especially with, mass deportation and the actions in the Middle East too, a lot of people felt like he didn't deliver on the promise of hope as well.
Oh God, no.
Yeah. But what I will say is he was a lot cooler than any other president. He was I think that the president as a role model does affect how people treat each other. Like how a president acts on television does bleed into the behavior patterns and speech patterns of people. So like when you have a president, regardless of what they're doing in the world, a president who is a bully and like calls people names will in turn create a generation where that's seen as okay. Whereas Obama was just like, people were nicer to each other during the Obama era than they are now.
100%. And that's a problem with Trump and Musk is they both are insulting. They insult you. And a good leader brings people together, period. Mm-hmm. You lead Channel 5. If you're insulting everybody and calling them names and like spreading rumors, you're not going to have a successful channel. You're not going to retain anybody. And they, if you are leading any organization and you start out of the gate with chaos, that's not a good leader. I always apply things to like a football team. Like if a new coach comes over and it's just total chaos and just everyone's unhappy and yelling at each other, that guy wouldn't last. But Trump has, he's hypnotized people to the degree that obviously anything he does is gold, but yeah, the fish rots from the head. And right now we have people, like you said, leading with insults and chaos and hate. Racism has been called like the unhealed scab of America. It's always there. You can always pick at it. And most leaders, Republican and Democrat, since like the civil rights especially, have tried to like foster better and better times, but that scab's still there.
Yeah.
And Trump came in and he's just picking at it. And of course, blood's pouring out.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the easiest issues to weaponize. So moving to the Tesla protests again. So they're spreading by the thousands. What are the primary goals of the Tesla takedown movement?
The primary goal is to reduce the value of Tesla brand, to tarnish the brand. That's one of the reasons I did it and one of the reasons I'm drawn to it. I'm not a big protest boycott petition guy because I don't think they work, but this is like a unique window of a perfect storm. Our sole goal is to reduce the Tesla brand value because Elon Musk's entire mystique is based on wealth and power. And his entire wealth and power is based, not entire, but the majority is Tesla. Take that down, you take him down. And I would like to point out, let's not lose the narrative. This is all about Trump and the people who control him destroying our country unconstitutionally. It's just Trump has rape convictions and he can't do business in New York. He's untouchable. He got reelected despite having classified documents in his bathroom. Elon Musk is a much easier target to achieve the same goal, which is, again, Trump and the people that are his puppeteers.
And how successful have the protests been?
Very successful. I would say just look at the stock chart since he did the Sieg Heil. It's come down 40 to 50%. I don't know if you follow stocks, but if you look at like a year chart of the stock, there's something called support. And that's if you can draw a line across the support. And that's support is where a stock falls and kind of bounces. And it's been hitting that support. And if we break through that, then there's like a whole nother level of support. That's another 100 points down. So we've hit that support, the car dealership commercial at the White House, all the elections and Elon just getting more and more boisterous, plus the terrorism calls, I think, have all boistered support in the stock price. I think we're about to see, with the tariffs now and the stock market falling, I think you're about to see a plunge of the stock price, which is our goal. It has been said, haven't seen receipts that Elon Musk has a margin call at 130.
Today?
No, just in general. He's extremely leveraged. That's one of the ways he's become such a successful businessman is he leverages everything to your collateral is $1 million and you leverage that into 10 million to make a new investment. But if the stock drops to 130, there's a margin call.
Got it.
And when that happens, he has to come up with the money. Now, I believe because there's no more law, there's just Trump law. Trump will just tell the SEC, don't do anything, just don't ask for the money. I expect that to happen, but it doesn't matter because his value is still low.
Yeah.
And suddenly this 300 billionaire is now worth 50 billion. He's not such a big hotshot in that world.
So the idea is just to reduce his net worth gradually over time.
That's his source of power, and more importantly, his mystique. All these people who buy into all his cockamamie crap he says and says he's going to do, they're not going to buy it anymore.
Yeah, it's true. Like, wealth worship is something that's hypnotized the masses. People just think like, you have money, that's so sick. You know, I mean, you could go back to like Jay-Z, Big Pimp, and that's a different kind of wealth. But with this, it's like, you're a businessman, you're an alpha male, you know, you're on top. Like, I should listen to whatever you have to say.
That was a big reported story under W. It was the K Street. Basically, if you're wealthy, that means you're righteous in a religious level. And if you are poor, then you are not as righteous, you're not as worthy in the eyes of the Lord. Yeah. And that's this whole mystique that's like, it took over with W, and now it's on steroids with Trump.
I would argue that in America and just society in general, the dollar is more valuable and important than God. I think people worship money more than they do God, and it's the religion that justifies more than the Crusades could have ever.
I agree, and I don't know if you saw reports today, because it just happened today, but because of these tariffs, the world's basically saying, F you, America, we can't deal with all your chaos, we're switching to a new currency, which is devastating.
Yeah.
And that's not good. I'm not rooting for that.
No, but I mean, it's just talking about the impacts of real politics.
The people worship the money, the almighty dollar. Capitalism's great, but I believe in, I'm a social democrat, not a democratic socialist. Social democrat, everyone believes government up until now has some sort of role to help society. We just disagree on where that line is. And it's a very complicated machine, and it just needs a lot of maintenance and care. It can't be left on its own.
Yeah, I think part of what you're saying too is the reason that so many young people didn't want to vote is they're staunchly anti-capitalist altogether. They're looking at the situation, especially in the late stage of capitalism, where there's such little regulation, so much inequality. They're thinking on a more utopian level, like, I don't want to vote for either of these parties. I want a brand new world.
I get the sentiment, and I get that these people were born into 9/11, the housing bubble pop, Iraq. It's been a tough go. They haven't seen the vision of the world pay off. Like, my generation, I'm Gen X, our parents grew up in the great middle class of 40s, 50s, and 60s. We've seen what it can be. We've seen a single parent household raise a family, a single earning, send kids to college. We've seen it work. To me, it's just a tax rate, the 90% tax rate under Truman for the rich, and that's now down to like 30. So, yeah, I understand why they're disillusioned. The millennials and Gen Z and now Gen Alpha, and I understand the desire, especially when you're young, to just blow it up. And that attitude. That's how we get great music and great art from people in their teens and 20s. It's just like they're unrestrained with their thinking, and everything takes time. That's what frustration I have with Gen Z is I don't know if they've ever watched someone want to make change in government, like with a law. It takes years, because you have to start with your own group, and then you have to get signatures, and then get it to the state senate, and then it has to get voted on, and then there has to be an election. There's so many steps, and it's like, if it doesn't happen in 4 months, Gen Z is like, psh. I'm not here to slam Gen Z. I think it's not their fault, like the whole social media immediacy, like you press a button on your phone and something that used to take a week to come is now there the next day. Like, that's the world they know, and everything's like that. And the government is a giant ship that takes time to turn.
Yeah, I think it's the timeline of the internet versus the timeline of government. It's creating some disconnect here. Because with the internet, people can make or break you overnight. You know, and with law and any sort of judicial process or electoral process, it takes an incredibly long time, and you have to have patience and really see it through. I think people are so trained for that instant payoff or gratification of like putting someone all the way up or putting someone all the way down. And that's just the internet probably moves 30 times slower than the courts do. You know, because the internet is its own court. The court of public opinion moves so fast. I mean, if you look at the support for Biden in 2020 was overwhelming. People were like, Trump is horrible, you know, especially after January 6th, we're like, Biden is the guy. And then one thing happens, a conflict starts in the Middle East, then all of a sudden, anyone who doesn't condemn that is worthy of complete, shame and exile. And that's how, I went to the DNC in Chicago. And there was more protesters outside the DNC protesting Harris, Biden, and their policy on Israel than there was actually inside of the building.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
And then candidates come out of nowhere and say, I will answer your calls. They take those votes only away from the left, liberals, and they give more votes to Trump.
I mean, I agree with what you're saying, and I'm of a camp that I'm a Democrat, and I blame Democrats for that. Like, this is the same playbook that's been run for 30 years since Gingrich, or before Lee Atwater, under Reagan, and to not have a messaging response is infuriating. It's possible. First, we just have to first stop playing in their framework of, like you said, they're the problem, we have the answers. Everything we say, how Democrats talk is like Doge. Everyone, like Democratic politicians, even Democratic or liberal pundits, everyone, before they even say what they think about Doge, they go, well, look, I believe we should get rid of waste and fraud too. Like, just by saying that, you're automatically buying into the framing that the default government is waste and fraud. And that drives me crazy. First of all, government does so much that's good. I absolutely believe we can improve on anything, but there's so much the government does that we've learned with these cuts that are so vital. Every department that they're cutting, National Institute of Health, USAID, which is like our best form of soft power. The point is, everyone assumes government is wasteful and fraudulent. Have you ever worked for a corporation? You want to see waste? Go work in an ad agency. I mean, Social Security's administrative costs are 1%. A normal health insurance company is 20 to 30% administrative cost. So where's the waste? And on top of that, I mean, that's why we're protesting Musk and Trump. Doge they haven't released a single case of fraud. Where are the charges? What fraud have you shown? It's just tweets. Again, Elon Musk is all hype. The waste and fraud is all hype. I've done forensic accounting on a very small amount, like low six figures. It is painstaking. So we're supposed to believe guys who know nothing about government are coming in within weeks, looking at billion-dollar agencies line by line and finding fraud. It's literally impossible. It's just all a big lie. And that's why we're protesting, is because they're destroying our country unconstitutionally because Congress is not doing its job as checks and balances. And Musk he's destroying agencies that he's like the FAA, he's breaking them. Oh, well, this is broken. We need to fix it. Hire Elon Musk Starlink to be the new service provider, since we've destroyed the government one, which was useless and wasteful. No, it wasn't. You just killed it. So now Elon Musk has come in and he's giving himself contracts because he's breaking the agencies that no longer work. And he also destroyed investigations into multiple aspects of all his companies that the government was doing. He came in and fired the investigators. It's all, going back to leadership, when a guy who only had 49.8% of the vote, Trump, he did not have a mandate of the majority. You bring in Musk and you're very quickly and illegally firing and destroying agencies. You're doing it against the will of the people, which all polls show. That is a coup. That is a coup. When you're doing something way too fast, that's against the wish of the people that you lied about during the election. He didn't say he was going to do all this stuff. That should be called a coup. Again, getting the framing. This isn't just an inconvenience, or it's just like, we're angry because you're not doing things the right way. No, it's a frickin' coup. And we need to use this language or else we're never going to get our message out.
As far as like this Tesla stock price going down, how much do you think the boycotts had to do with that?
I think a lot. It's sort of chicken and the egg. It's like the people were unaware of Musk's influence, and the boycott protests are raising awareness that is then making the stock price fall, which is then creating more awareness, which makes the stock price fall, which then has Trump and Pam Bondi saying you're a domestic terrorist. So people who weren't paying attention are like, domestic terrorist? What is this? I can't tell you how many people, like 8 weeks into our protest, like at the Americana, it's a more conservative Glendale area, people come up actually genuinely, not belligerent, and they're like, so what did Musk do? Like, why are you protesting? And they honestly have no idea about anything. And my first reaction is just like, my brain shuts down, because I'm like, I understand if you disagree with what we're protesting, you can be pro-Doge or pro-Trump, but to not even know what this is about, unfortunately, like I have people very close to me who I am now at odds with. They drive Teslas, and they don't understand why I'm doing this. And these are informed. Well, they're generally informed, but they're not following all the Musk Doge stuff. And they're like, why are you doing this? And it's crazy.
When you talk about people just not caring or not knowing, do you think that's just people being tapped out of what's going on in the world, or do you think it's like they're in an algorithm which shields them from that reality?
Both. My whole thing is the internet, the human species did not evolve for this. Like, we can stand on a savanna and look at all the trees and animals and forests and just take it all in, all the sounds. We did not evolve to take a fire hose of information, which is the internet. We know how to pick nuts and berries. Then you add, so that weakened the system, and then social media came in as the virus to destroy us and give us a brain cancer. And we've just gone mad as a mass consciousness.
Yeah, I feel like we have a mutual across-the-board brain cancer from left to right. In your view, what will determine the success of the boycott movement?
Let's say the $130 margin call is real. Our success is to get there, to really cause Musk to, like, when you get a margin call, you're screwed. Again, I feel that Trump is just going to wipe away the margin call. But if the stock price is that far and he's under that much duress, then he has lost a significant amount of wealth. The success of the Tesla boycott will be determined when Elon Musk has lost the majority of his wealth and power.
And you see that as a real possibility?
Absolutely. It's happening as we speak.
And there's obviously been a couple different incidents of vandalism and, like, for real deal property destruction connected to the boycotts. How do you feel about that?
I don't support vandalism and violence. There is a reptilian side of me that wants to go at it, but I'm a peaceful person, and so is all our protests have been peaceful. But even bigger is once violence starts happening, like all successful movements in history were peaceful. Once violence is introduced into the equation, it changes the narrative. Look at George Floyd. That was about police brutality. Once the violence started, it was just about Antifa and property destruction, and no one talked.
But do you think they would have convicted Derek Chauvin if the streets weren't on fire? Because I was there whenever he got convicted, and I feel like the jury definitely felt the pressure, especially the judge, of like, all right, if we give this guy anything but a harsh penalty, Minneapolis will burn again.
I agree. I don't think he would have been convicted without the protests. There were protests happening before the violence. I don't know that it would have happened. I don't know that the violence helped his verdict either way. I would argue the protests allowed for him to be convicted, but I don't know if the violence hurt or helped.
But do you consider property destruction to be violent?
I mean, it's illegal.
But is it violent?
I would say so, yes. Because, for instance, the person who didn't understand why I was protesting it and they own Teslas, they have a certain amount of fear that not only will their car be damaged, but it might be damaged with them in it. It's like spitting is an assault. It's not so much that the spit itself is overly violent, but it represents a threat. And I think threat of violence is arguably as powerful, if not more powerful, than violence itself.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I've gone back and forth with a lot because I grew up in Seattle, like, with a bunch of anarchists, and they're very much like into the idea of direct action. We actually have an interview today with an anti-car activist who's involved in, like, some pretty significant property destruction. But the idea is, okay, Trayvon Martin, for example, that was a nonviolent protest. George Zimmerman got off. So I think there's been a couple instances, especially with police brutality, or not even police, just, unarmed black people being taken, victimized by people who didn't have just cause in doing so. And I think there's been a couple different movements that led up to George Floyd, which made people feel like, all right, we've protested time and time again, but until some flames started going up, nobody listened to us.
I'm not gonna say that violence doesn't raise the stakes and put an issue into the consciousness when it otherwise would not have been. I will counter to you. You grew up in Seattle. That was a WTA protest?
WTA was in 2000.
Okay, so that was before you were born?
No, 3 years after.
Okay, well, I
wasn't out there.
So the WTA protests did get attention, but I remember that it quickly just turned into a bunch of idiot, violent hippies, and people discounted it. Now let's look at Occupy Wall Street. Let's look at what happened when it broke through the consciousness of America and the whole 99% thing even became adopted by all sides of the political spectrum. It was when that one woman got pepper sprayed by a cop. I don't know if you remember that, but there's like video of her being sprayed. As soon as that happened, coverage went through the roof. So what's the difference there? That was violence. It was violence perpetrated on the peaceful protesters, just like with Gandhi, just like with MLK. There was violence on Edmund Pettus Bridge, but it was the cops against the peaceful protesters. So it's a weird dichotomy, but violence actually really helps a movement, but it has to be by the power against the protesters.
So you're saying that actually makes sense. So the best thing that could happen is a major non-violent protest, and the cops escalate it, and that creates good optics for the cause.
The best thing that could happen for the Tesla protests is I'm peacefully protesting and the cops come and beat me.
Yeah, for sure. Would you fight back, or would you kind of just like play into it for the optics? Like,
Well, here's the problem. I'm no fan of the Proud Boys, and there's been rumors that they were going to be showing up. And
why? Oh, to beef with you guys.
Yeah.
Not in solidarity.
No.
I was like, what skin do they have in the game?
And I have a lot of rage against the whole political thing. And, once they punch me, I have a right to defend myself. But there was a kid, like at the Americana, there's these hordes of 8th grade kids that they're giving us Sieg Heils in the white power symbol because they know that it's provocative.
That's some 8th grader shit.
Yeah, that's like, I get it.
Yeah.
So one kid spit on the street right in front of us. There's that little trolley street. And I was like, come closer, let's have a talk. And he spit way too close to me. And there's a stanchion rope. I jumped that rope and I got in his face. And I was just like, apologize now, you apologize. And he went, I'm sorry. And I did that knowing full well, because there's cops everywhere. And I was like, where's the freaking cops? Cops, get here now, because I don't want to have anything to do with an 8th grade child. And so luckily the cops descended pretty quickly and I just turned away and went right back to the protests. So yeah, I don't want violence perpetrated against us. I'm merely stating a fact that historically movements, I don't even want to go there. We are nonviolent. It is the proven method of successful protest, and it's succeeding as we speak against Tesla. Oh, that was what I was going to say, is stay focused. And that's been the remarkable thing about the Tesla protests, is they are so focused. It's about Musk and Trump and Doge, and it's not all this other crazy stuff. I care about abortion. I care about Code Pink things, and I care about the Gaza. There's no Gaza signs. There's an occasional Ukraine one, but that's it. It's been remarkable how focused the Tesla protests are when it's grassroots, there's no leadership, it's just people coming together and we're all...
Yeah, I think you did the right thing with those 8th graders at the mall. When I was in 8th grade, me and my friends used to fill up water balloons with pee, and we would hide in the bushes near a public park in Seattle. When cars would come by, we would hit them 100 different water. We had to pee a lot in these water balloons. And at one time, this guy stopped. Yeah, his guard. He's like, "Fucking come here!" And we're like, "Oh, we're terrified," because he really, like you did, he jumped the rope. And so we thought he was gonna beat the shit out of us. And then he grabs my friend Lewis, and he's like, "Give me your phone." Unlocks Lewis's phone, looks up Lewis's mom's phone contact,
that's amazing.
and calls Lewis's mom, and she comes, and he's already crying. And I think that overall it was a learning experience. If that guy were to have punched one of us, it would transform into a whole different thing. So he did some good nonviolent discipline. Confrontational, but not violent.
It's interesting you went with pee, because I was in high school, I was a senior, and we were doing water balloons at cars with the winger, where two people hold a giant slingshot. And it never occurred to me to fill it with pee. We were just using old-fashioned water, but more power to you. That's the 8th grade brain right there.
Yeah, because we figured water wasn't pissing people off enough.
Oh my God.
And we had started drinking beer, which made it so we had more pee to work with. Lewis is now a Park City, Utah snowboard instructor. So he got saved from the world of pee water balloons, which quickly escalated into selling weed.
Yeah, pee water balloons is the gateway protest to I think it's Tren de Agua, Venezuelan.
Tren de Aragua, the Aurora, Colorado landlords. I was there on scene, and it was really interesting because I went there about a week after the whole thing unfolded, and it was probably more influencers there than tenants. On the right wing, you had like influencers with their MAGA hats and their long live stream technologies being like, we're here in the center of the gang takeover, Tren de Aragua's apartment building. And then you had like all the liberal influencers like talking to like random people on the street being like, are you in a gang? And they'd be like, no, I'm not in no gang, papi. And they would be like, see, there's no gang members here. It was like a media circus, but people were the circus animal was just real life human beings going to work in Colorado.
Yes, that's a great observation. It's sad. It's you got to help change that. You got to change things.
I'm trying.
So I've been thinking about like our next boycott. Let's say we destroy Elon Musk's wealth as much as we can, because he'll always have wealth. If he gets kicked out of Tesla and divests, he'll have, oops.
It's okay, it's Chief Key. If you didn't break it, the head comes off.
Okay. Even if they buy him out, he'll have billions of dollars. But we have all these people coming together. I feel like the movement is actually going, it's not there yet, but there's going to be an organic point where it has to evolve to something else.
Yeah.
I mean, I personally have always believed, Trump is doing everything we predicted. I have a gentleman's bet, like with my friends, that there will be martial law by sometime this summer. And the whole domestic terrorism pretense of Tesla, it's just a canard so that they have the pretense to declare martial law. They are just looking for any small reason, and this Tesla protest popped up for them as a gift in a way for their desires to say, oh, they're burning a car, they're all terrorists, martial law.
I mean, terror is the most weaponized word of all time, not just in the public consciousness, but what the terrorism designation grants or permits our federal government is to operate extrajudicially without any cooperation, especially on foreign lands. One question I had for you is, so first off, the social pressure created by the boycott is definitely seen here in the streets of LA. I was going through Silver Lake, which is like you live in Los Angeles. I was in Silver Lake, and I was seeing some Teslas drive by, and I could say 50% of Teslas that drove by had a sticker, a bumper sticker, indicating that they did not like Elon. Like maybe the sticker, one of them said felon. Yeah, it's a good one that I saw at the protest. It was F Elon, because it's F Elon, felon. It's perfect. I saw that on a bunch of different Teslas. Are they doing their part enough, or should they sell it?
They're doing their part enough, I think. First of all, I don't condone vandalism or anything, but it is happening, and I feel like that sticker says "Don't mess with me." A lot of people can't get rid of them. They can't sell them, or they're underwater on their payments. And I would say, 90+% of Tesla owners are socially, environmentally conscious liberals who were trying to do the right thing. It sucks that it turns out they're supporting a Nazi, and we interviewed people at our protest who were trying to get out of their lease and they couldn't. Like Tesla's not helping them. So yeah, it's there's someone sending out flyers that you can tell if a Tesla has been purchased since Elon went evil. There's like slightly different designs, and they put like a flyer on their car and on all the neighbors' homes, like in their mailboxes, to let them know this guy bought it after, so he knew Elon was a bad person and still bought a Tesla.
Holy shit, that's intense.
Yeah.
Do you think that Tesla can have a sort of Shane Gillis Bud Light moment and feature the most progressive person in their commercial and be able to reverse the boycott?
I got it. I have the spokesman for Tesla, Bill Burr.
Oh my God,
Bill Burr talks race like nobody else can, and he goes anywhere, talks about anything, and he does it right now for the times. Smart. He's the guy.
And the reason that he's broken the matrix is when you hear a Boston accent in that cadence, you assume there's racist stuff incoming. But it's actually the reverse. It's anti-racist Boston verbiage, which is changing the world.
Have you heard his bit where he's like going to visit his now wife? She's black and in Harlem, and he's like a white, redheaded Irish dude going up to Harlem, and just everything about the experience.
No, I haven't seen it.
It's funny.
Yeah, is she from Harlem?
I think that's where she lived at the time when they were dating.
Yeah, it was crazy to see people were calling, like they're saying like Bill Burr went woke, and they're like using pictures of him and his wife. It's like, I don't know, all black people made you woke. You know what I mean? It's
that's what woke means. DEI and woke means black people. I want to say, before I forget about Teslas and the sticker, easily in our protests outside when there's cars honking, the number one most horn honks we get are from Tesla drivers. Almost, I would say 3/4 of them actually honk. A lot of people just don't honk. I don't know how they feel. Tesla drivers specifically are honking, and that's just fascinating.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed our interview with Joe Lava. Now, a word from our sponsor. Here at the Channel 5 newsroom, we know more than most how unpredictable the world can be. On a day just like any other, you could be pulling into the office and boom, you're T-boned by a Ford F-150. Your car's totaled, your back's hurting, and you're gonna be late for work. While this might sound unrealistic, it actually isn't, like at all. 2 million people in the United States are injured every year. Are you prepared for that possibility? Well, guess what? If you're injured in a car accident, your case could be worth millions. But most people never file a claim, and if they do, they're often lowballed by insurance companies into thinking it's not worth their time. How could millions not be worth your time? It's ridiculous. Traditional injury law firms might bog you down with reams of paperwork, time-consuming processes, never-ending upcoming appointments, and the cost that accompany all those things. But not Morgan & Morgan. Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys operating in all 50 states, even Rhode Island. They're not one of these traditional law firms who might waste your time and money. They're a national-facing brand with a promise of being for the people, para la gente. Morgan & Morgan do not settle for lowball offers. They've achieved significant verdicts in the past couple of months for victims involved in life-altering car crashes. Morgan & Morgan was able to secure one client $6.3 million, despite the client's own insurance company arguing they deserved nothing. Despite prior medical issues and minimal vehicle damage, Morgan & Morgan was able to build a compelling case and reward what was rightly deserved. In Florida, they secured $12 million, which was 34 times the highest insurance offer. And in Philadelphia, they were able to even secure $26 million, 40 times the highest insurance offer. You might be thinking, I don't have the money to hire lawyers in a case that might go on for a while. But that's the thing. Their fee is absolutely free unless you win. Fighting big insurance companies takes a big law firm, which is why America's largest injury firm can take on companies of any size. It only takes a few minutes to see if you can have a case, and it couldn't be easier to submit a claim. If you ever seriously got injured, your case could be worth millions, and you're only a few clicks away from your potentially life-changing sum of money. It's so easy. You can start your claim right now with Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/channel5, found in the description or by scanning the QR code on this screen from your phone's camera. All right, guys, thanks. And now, back to our scheduled programming. After speaking with the Honorable Mr. Lava, I went down another internet rabbit hole, and I came across some tweets that read something to the tune of, "This isn't just about Tesla. All cars are a threat to our community and safety." The account posting seemed to suggest that the Tesla boycotters weren't doing enough and were being too linear in their focus on a specific car brand while ignoring the larger problem at hand. Other tweets on the thread included, "Henry Ford was a literal Nazi. Where's the Ford boycott?" And a link to a data sheet showing the 42,112 motor fatalities in 2024, captioned, "Is picketing Tesla gonna bring these people back? Fuck no. We need a world without cars." To me, this logical digression perfectly encapsulates the mentality of cancel kids and why the left can't win. On the right, you've got half the voting population united in their obedient worship of Trump and Elon. And on the left, you see infighting start to emerge on the immediate heels of a small victory as this cannibalistic mechanism is activated by the self-righteous online talking heads who are more concerned with chastising their own for not doing enough than they are with uniting to defeat a common enemy who, by the way, are very much united in their convictions. If I were to put my tinfoil hat on, I would say that intersectionality is a clever psyop engineered to cause progressives to lose focus. But I don't think the CIA is really involved here because these people have indoctrinated themselves in a level of logic that rivals the flat earth. Here's how they think step by step. Bear with me. Step 1. Leaving a broader group out of a singular discussion marginalizes them. Step 2. If a group is marginalized, you must center their voice in the discussion. Step 3. If you do not center their voice, you are causing harm to them through implied violence, which has caused trauma. Step 4. Trauma requires accountability, a parasocial process that prohibits debate and can be taken two ways. First, through self-renunciation, and secondly, a complete transfer of resources to the offended or marginalized party. By step 4, the online mob has already likely moved on to its next target, leaving the often well-intentioned activists so disenchanted with progressives that they jump into the open arms of the right. Welcome to the United States. Anyways, this online debate sent me down a rabbit hole that landed me in a private Discord server with members of the Safe Street Rebel Alliance, a non-hierarchical, non-violent group of cyclists from San Francisco who organize slow rides across the city to disrupt car traffic, host vigils for pedestrians killed by cars, and have a campaign called Cone SF where they systematically place traffic cones on the hoods of self-driving Waymos and other robotaxis, which apparently shuts down their operating system and leaves them in the middle of the road just freaking out. I tried to get one of the Safe Street activists in our studio for a sit-down interview, and they were not having it for obvious reasons. So I had to get creative, and I posted an Instagram story asking if any anti-car activists from the West Coast would be down to come to the Channel 5 studio and sit down for an exclusive conversation. Shortly after, I was contacted by a person from my hometown of Seattle, Washington, who is directly involved in anti-Tesla and anti-Waymo vandalism, and deeply entrenched into a secret society of car haters that until now I didn't know existed in my hometown. Due to factors that will become obvious, they've requested that I leave their name and age out of this interview. But without further ado, here is an interview with a car-hating soldier currently on the front lines of the Emerald City. Are you worried about like the domestic terrorism label?
Yes, a bit, yeah. Especially because if you can just label anybody you don't like a terrorist, like we're really cooked. But also no, because I'm like very visibly white. Like I feel like the news would have a field day if you deported, someone like me.
All right, yo, thanks so much for making the time.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. With all this stuff going on with Tesla and everything like that, it kind of sent me down like an anti-car activist rabbit hole. Right. I mean, I had a homie or an associate of mine who's a graffiti artist who started doing tags on Waymos. Yeah. And so I was like, holy shit, it's deeper than Tesla. Yeah. There's a whole army of people out here who just don't fuck with cars overall. Yeah. So what can you tell us about that?
I think that we have an over-reliance on cars, and specifically this country, but really the world. And I think that people are really just fed up with kind of having to drive everywhere, kind of having to spend money on gas, especially at the prices it's gotten. And I think that especially Waymos, like the way they've been introduced and the promise of the technology they have is, I mean, people just see through the bullshit, I think.
For sure. So what can you tell us about yourself, like where you grew up and stuff?
Yeah, so I grew up in Orlando and then lived in Dallas for a while. And so you see like everybody has a car to go everywhere. Like there is not a place you can go without a car pretty much. Yeah. And that kind of on top of driving for work kind of just led me to be like, I hate this thing. I want to get out of this car. Mm-hmm. And there is no option is really the main point.
Mm-hmm. What do you hate most about being in the car?
I think the danger, at all times you're like a split second away from being pinned up against a tree, Yeah. And I think on top of that, the like insular nature of being in a car, you're like climate controlled, you got whatever music, you're just kind of in your own world. You kind of feel kind of like God, you can just go 60 miles an hour immediately if you want to. And I think that leads people to make very dangerous decisions.
Yeah, I think it's certainly an antisocial experience too, especially living here in LA. Probably spend 10 to 20 hours a week on the freeway. Yeah. And I remember back in the day growing up in Seattle, I would catch the bus everywhere. Like, I used to live like right downtown, so I'd catch the 14 bus up to the Hill or the 3 or the 4 to the CD. Yep. And it was every day I saw something crazy on the bus. I had like a story to tell. Now it's just like I can tell you about a bunch of podcasts and new songs and shit because I'm on the phone, I'm like researching, trying to occupy this incredibly boring allotment of time that I spend on the road.
Yeah, it's like not a social environment at all. You are just kind of in your own world.
So Orlando, growing up there, what can you tell us about that?
It's a wild place. People think it's just Disney World, but it is not Disney World. It's kind of like it's owned by Disney. Like everybody that has a job there some way links back to the parks. It's like a conglomerate of suburbs. There is no like real downtown area because it just has the highway interchange through it, I-4 and whatnot.
Yeah, I've thought about this a lot before. The only walkable part of Orlando is like the Lake Eola Park corridor. But aside from that, you have like Sanford, Winter Garden, all the way down to Kissimmee. It's just this like infinite sprawl of suburbs. Yes. I had my RV breakdown one time on a street called Orange Blossom Trail.
Yes.
Familiar?
Yeah, I grew up on like right off Orange Blossom Trail. That's crazy, yeah. Yeah. That's quite the road to be on.
How would you paint a picture for the outsider of what OBT is like?
Oh shit, man. Anything you can get up to, anything, what's a good word to use?
Any race of prostitute.
Yeah, definitely. Or anything you want to get up to that you shouldn't be getting up to.
So you can find drugs there that people don't even do anymore. Like you can get a cigarette dipped in formaldehyde in 15 minutes.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it is crazy. Yeah, and it's all up and down OBT. Like there's a couple spots where you're like, all right, this is kind of normal, but I mean, when it gets dark, it's like you're in it.
It's the Wild West.
Absolutely, the Wild East.
In your experience living in Seattle, would you say OBT is crazier than Aurora?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say so, especially because it's just a bigger road. You know, like Aurora kind of gets cut off at the north and south where it's just becomes, you know, either Amazon town or like the northern part of Seattle where it's just like, you know, older families.
Green Lake and Woodland is right there, so there's still some commerce happening that isn't just like super post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
So your journey started in Orlando, and then you made your way to Dallas, which is another car hell city.
Yeah.
There's probably 5 to 10 car hell cities. What comes to mind as the worst car cities for you?
Oh, man. Probably Houston. Houston is up there, especially because of their like bullshit zoning laws where you can kind of just put, I mean, not whatever, wherever, but you know, the limits are not what they should be. I'd say Houston, all the Texas big mega cities, because you know, they don't give a shit. They're just like, put cars everywhere. Yeah. You know, we have infinite land here in Texas. So I'd say Houston, Dallas, and Austin in that order, probably. Well, because you got to factor in San Antonio.
Yeah, you can't. You always have to factor in San Antonio. There's someone watching right now like, yes!
I do get it, though. It's like an unsung hero of Texas, for sure.
It definitely is. So back then, were you like politically involved at all?
Yeah. I've been organizing with unions since like, for about 5 years now, so I've always kind of been on that end of it, but definitely living in Dallas, and I was driving for work, as I said, really kind of, I was just like, I feel so like alien to the world. And I don't know if you've ever tried to catch a DART bus, which is like their transit agency, but it's like they come sometimes. Yeah. And so I guess the not having an option, and especially having that like, you know, self-proclaimed Texas freedom mindset, you know? Yeah. It's like, I don't have the freedom to just like walk places. What the fuck are we doing?
Right. What was the first union that you got involved with?
Workers United through Starbucks. And then I just kind of did a bunch of external organizing from there, and pretty involved with like SEIU, and I won't say too much, but.
You still work at Starbucks?
Yeah, I still work at Starbucks.
What's your position there?
Lowly barista, you know?
You guys can make good tips now though, right?
Yeah, you know, so they say. I think that's a way of them not paying us a fair wage, just relying on whatever asshole comes in and it's like, here's $3 your way. Now, you know, I can yell at you all I want type thing.
Definitely, dude. I used to work at Starbucks too.
Did you?
But I worked at one on a college campus where everybody paid with their student IDs, so there was no tip option.
Nah,
so I'd have to serve like a bunch of kids during a finals week, like 100 kids in a row, no tips.
Damn.
Yeah. Oof. So what caused you to make that jump from Dallas to Seattle?
It was really family. It was really like, I don't really have any reason to be here. And definitely this new admin, you know, like debating on whether I want to say this, I'm just going to say it. You know, I'm a trans person, so like access to hormones and safety, you know, like Dallas is the #1 spot for trans women to die, which is like, just a crazy statistic.
Why is that?
I think it is a cultural thing, but I think it also is that Dallas is so sprawling and you can kind of get away with crazy, nasty shit like that. And also it's definitely a racial thing. You know, like white trans people die less than, you know, black trans people are.
Just because of homophobia or something?
Yeah. But also, you know, if you are like a white person that wants to do bad shit, you know, you're less likely going to target another white person, maybe because of biases, or maybe because you probably get away with it.
Yeah, there's less like police interest.
Yes. I mean, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's interesting because when I was a kid growing up in downtown Seattle, most of the trans people that I knew were black, and a lot of them were sex workers. Yeah. And they lived super hard. And they talked about this phenomenon that used to happen where they would have a client, and then after they would finish up with the client, because typically the client would be like cheating on their partner or whatever the fuck, like some old dude.
Of course.
He would have like this post-nut clarity that would in turn turn into something violent, where they'd be like, no one can know that I'm gay or something. And they would just have like a furious outburst.
That's a trans experience, you know? People don't want to feel like they're gay, especially if you're a sex worker, you know, you're gonna deal with the lowest of the low.
Who just have like this extreme shame complex kick in.
Yeah. For sure.
So you're planning on going through like a full transition?
Yeah, you know, I'm one of these people that's just like, fuck the binary, you know? So I'm kind of, my main goal is just to scare the shit out of people, you know? Just be incomprehensible, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah, you know, I'm 3 months now on estrogen, and I'm loving it. It was a decision that I didn't make immediately, because I was like, damn, you know, is this am I really gonna feel right in this? And then I did it and I was like, yeah, never mind.
What was like the jump off point that made you feel like it's time?
I started getting real buff. I was like, oh, what? Who the fuck is that in the mirror, you know? And it was just from like normal shit, you know, I'd just be like lifting boxes or something.
And you didn't like being buff?
Well, it's just that the body that I had, I was no longer identified as closely with. I was like, whoa, you know, like I don't mind being strong, but I don't want to be like, you know.
You didn't want to look like a douchebag.
Yeah.
So you feel like if you got too buff, fools would be like, fuck this fool.
Bodybuilders?
Yeah.
I like skinny, scrawny guys.
How about multimillionaires? How about 8 inches and thick? My testimony, I'm nothing but pure, and I ask you if you want to be in the YouTube channel. And you like scrawny guys.
Yeah, well, also, you know, I feel like I date primarily women, so I feel like women would look at me and be like, wow, you're so buff. And
So you feel like if you got too buff, you'd attract more superficial ladies?
I don't know if I don't know if I say that. Maybe, but I think I'd attract more straight ladies.
Yeah. Wait. Oh, I see what you're saying.
You're like
now.
looking for a man.
And are you straight? You date the ladies though.
I date the ladies primarily.
Okay,
yeah.
but you have dated some of the homies.
Yeah.
Okay, respect. Okay, and you're thinking like, so you felt like you would feel more comfortable having like a less masculine body, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. You hit it on the head.
Yeah. And so how long does it take for the estrogen to like genuinely take effect in your body?
Yeah, so you know, you start feeling it like, well, depending on the method in which you take it, right? Like if you're taking the pills, it takes a little longer. If you're taking the patches, it takes a little longer. But I've been doing the shots, and bro, I am scared of needles. So it has been an experience. But I'm telling you, week 1, I was like, damn, my skin is smooth. What's going on?
What? I'm trying to get on that shit.
What's that? This is a whole tangent, but you know that like live longer dude?
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Gary Johnson.
Yes, Gary Johnson. Yeah, he's taking non-feminizing estrogen for this effect.
Damn, he needs to just bite the bullet and just go for it.
Just do it, man. What are you doing?
Bruh, so your skin is getting smoother. Is your voice gonna change?
Probably a little, but again, I'm just trying to scare people. So I would like to look real feminine, and then, you know, somebody comes up to me and is like, hey, and I'm like, what?
So you moved to Seattle, you're taking estrogen, you're setting cars on fire.
Something like that. Yeah, I'm like Fox News' worst nightmare.
That literally is Fox News. Sounds like a Fox News GPT headline.
Yes. Yeah.
So what's the craziest shit you've done to a car?
Oh, the craziest shit I've done. I mean, it's just spray painting Cybertrucks. That's like the extent, personally. I know fools that like have gone further with, like, I don't know if you saw the Waymo caught on fire. I know people that are like in that kind of space, but I think that I'm like a deeply suspicious person. So if I don't know that I can get away with it, I'm not gonna do it, you know? So I don't think that that's a bad thing to like maybe light a car on fire too.
Let's back up a little bit. So the anti-car movement, what are the key tenets of the anti-car movement?
I would say choice, definitely. You know, like being able to choose how you want to get around. Also like safety. You know, I think that largely our cities have become just unlivable, you know, depending on which city, you know, there's levels to it, but safety for sure. You know, there's too many people that die on the streets every day just from getting hit by a car. You know, there's no like, they could be just walking to their class, to their job. Like it's not like they're doing crazy shit. So I think that's like the two main things. And then also, I think people just want to be able to not be so insular, you know, and want to have a sense of like, I know the people around me, rather than just being like you said, in your bubble where you listen to the podcast and music or whatever, and not having a story for that day, you know?
So do you envision a world without cars?
We can dream. But you know, I don't think so. I think that cars have a role. You know, I think that there is a reason why people like having cars. I think that what I envision is not having to own one. You know, it's like that having to that is the problem.
So you're talking about taking away the necessity, making it so people have the option to live without a car.
Right.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like the most pertinent need for a car, I'm thinking would be semi-trucks transporting agricultural goods into the cities.
Certainly.
Sounds like what you're talking about is major metropolitan areas having enough of a public transportation infrastructure to where you don't need a car to live your life.
Right, yeah. Or, you know, and this isn't just, it could be rule as well. You know, like there is a way to make places and not just like gutters for cars, you know? And even like stuff like the trucking business, you know, we could do this via freight rail. We just don't have a vested interest enough into actually getting that done than we do into selling more tires, selling more 18-wheelers, selling more things of that nature.
You know what's crazy, bro? I'm gonna get a real tinfoil hat. So in the 1960s, between 20 to 30% of people traveled via thumb, hitchhiking.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh, shit.
The Ford Motor Company subsidized a program by President J. Edgar Hoover that was a covert operation to stigmatize hitchhikers so they could raise sales for auto manufacturers. They funded the production of the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, in which a hitchhiker kills a regular group of motorists to get people to fear hitchhikers and to get hitchhikers afraid of the public turning against them so they could create more auto sales. So the death of hitchhiker culture, which was like the ethos of the hippie movement, was directly caused by a CIA psyop that was meant to sell more cars.
Well, great, I got a new talking point. I didn't even know that.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because I ask people what happened to hitchhiking, and they say, oh, the world's just not safe anymore. I think security culture itself, especially if you want to talk about post 9/11, like for airplanes, you know, but for cars, it was the hitchhiker stranger danger that led most people to get their own vehicles.
Damn.
Back in the day, it was super common to hitchhike to work.
Yeah, okay, there you go. I didn't even, and that also tracks in line with them buying out, you know, the streetcar systems of old and just ripping them out, you know.
When you look at public transportation as far as like the most effective systems, what cities come to mind?
Oh, you know, you gotta say like Tokyo, you gotta say like Amsterdam or Rotterdam or things of that. Even some, I mean, really the biggest example I would say is Chinese cities. You know, you got entire metro systems that have just been crafted within like 20 years. And they went from like no high-speed rail grid to like everywhere is connected. And I think that is the shining example because it's new. Like a lot of people have this idea that because we don't have it built at all, that there is no way forward. And
cities with the best public transportation systems also statistically have the highest social trust, you know? And I think part of the anti-hitchhiker CIA Hoover psyop was to reduce social trust, create stranger danger to where you're like, I don't want to ride the bus is full of criminals and homeless people, and I want my own car so I can guarantee safety when I'm going.
Right, yeah. And I think that, you know, the joke is that on New York trains, there's like someone going to Wall Street, there's like a homeless guy, and a day-then barista from Bushwick. And when you have that sense of like, okay, we all have to keep this like a space where we're all going, you feel at least some sort of cohesion rather than just, I don't know who else is in the cars next to me, you know?
That's so true, man. You do feel like this solidarity when you're riding the train in New York, where you're like, we're all have different walks of life, but we're all here right now doing our thing.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So as far as your activism, you do believe in direct action means?
Oh, certainly, yeah.
Right. And so what are some of those direct action strategies?
There are some ways you can do it that don't directly involve like breaking the law, right? Where you can try to implement congestion pricing, or you can try to implement like, you know, tolls for roads and stuff. But I think that only goes so far. I think that it is kind of like a social thing. So I think some of the direct things that you can do is kind of just be a menace. You know, go out there and walk when you're supposed to walk, you know, get a bunch of people on bikes and overtake the whole lanes and shit. Because it's just like, there was a time where cars didn't own the street. And I think that we need to kind of do things like taking over a street or like taking over a Pike Market, where you just have so much that it is unignorable. You know, I think that there is a role for things like spray painting a Tesla, where you're just like wanting to cause some chaos. But I think without a goal in mind, it's not really direct action. You're just like feeling emboldened because everybody else feels like fuck cars. You know, so I think the direct actions have to be organized with other people.
Right. So what do you think about the whole Tesla boycott going on?
Yeah, I mean, fuck Teslas. You know, like they're not good cars. They're expensive car bombs. I would say that they are a sham. They're just a promise of this electric car. You know, they got into the market first in America, so they have this like leg up, but they're not even the best electric cars out, you know? And it's just because it's this buffoon that is the president now, you know, because he has so much influence, he can kind of control, you know, he did a commercial at the White House, and we won't even let electric vehicles from China come into the country at all. Yeah. So it's like, I think that people have a real anger and hatred for the guy behind it. And I think that any way that we can get people to like understand this, you know, this promise of this green future with these cars is a sham is a win.
So you're taking things a step further and you're thinking, doesn't matter if it's electric or gas powered.
Yeah.
Still same machine.
Right, because we're not at a point where we have electric cars that are just like zero emissions starting. You know, you have to produce that car and you have to charge that car.
Yeah.
And not only to mention things like tire particulate matter and things of that nature, where no matter how green you get the car, there is still inherent things with a car that is not green. I don't think that there's anything necessarily wrong with EVs replacing gas-powered vehicles, although I don't think it'll happen within my lifetime. I do think that it's not the golden bullet or silver bullet everybody thinks it's going to be.
So we spoke to our friend Joel earlier, who is the leading figure in the Tesla boycott protests that have now taken the world by storm.
Yeah.
It seems like you feel like it's bigger than Tesla.
Certainly.
But the boycotts have been a good opportunity for your movement to take center stage.
Yeah. Because, I don't know, Tesla is an enemy, but it's not the enemy, you know?
Is the enemy just all cars?
More or less. I would say it's the dominance of cars. I don't know that it's like everybody in a car. Some people just are trying to go to work and there is no other option. I think that the real enemy is building just roads for cars, just highways for cars. And I think that a lot of that is just the public attitude towards having a car.
So you're not walking around fucking up cars?
No, but you know, if you park in the bike lane, if you're parking in the crosswalk, you're liable for those things to come back and bite you in the ass. So
you will fuck up a car?
I will fuck up a car.
But you're not waking up being like, I'm gonna go fuck some cars up, because you do have a job.
Yeah, I gotta eat somehow.
You guys mentioned that you did something recently at Pike Place. Could you talk about that?
Yeah, so we organized like a monthly bike ride where for the past couple months, actually, we've just been completely overtaking that intersection there.
Which one?
It's Pike and I think First.
Okay, by the Target.
Yes. And we just kind of, we do that and then we go into the market and just ride all through the market. Basically, we're just trying to be a nuisance. You know, there's a lot of businesses in Pike Market that think they're not going to be able to receive shipments or whatever reason they have stated. And at some point, that just isn't a functional method of running the market. So what we're doing is kind of just showing that this is not a space for cars. You know, it doesn't even make sense for cars to be here.
In Pike Place?
Yeah, in Pike Place, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Yeah, you know, tourists come and they load in, let me get to Pike Place Market, and they're driving right through like what should be just a pedestrianized area.
I know, there's no worse vibe than like right after you hop out of Tenzing Momo or Left Bank Books and you're trying to walk down the cobblestones by the first Starbucks and there's some fucking asshole with his Uber or Waze up, like driving hella fast toward the gum wall. Yeah. You're like, buddy, slow down.
Yeah. You don't own this right
Yeah,
now.
You don't own this. Take that street down there. What's the street down there called?
Alaska Way.
Take Alaska Way. No, there's a street in between Alaska Way that when you take the elevator from the fish market all the way down. Back in the day when the viaduct was there, I used to hide under that little area to smoke weed by the antique store.
Oh yeah. I don't even know what that street is called. I thought it was Alaska, but they've changed that grid so much I could just be lost in translation.
Dude, Pike Place is amazing. I support what you guys are doing if it means Pike Place pedestrian accessibility.
Dude, I hope so.
Back in the day, they had this place at Pike Place. It was called like it was called the Guinness Book of World Records store. And it only lasted for about a year, but everything in there was like the hottest hot sauce, the most sour candy, the stinkiest like stink bomb. Like everything was meant for the extremes.
Right.
So you go there before school and just terrorize the school all day.
Havoc. Oh yeah.
Hot sauce in one pocket, stink bombs in the other. You're fucking challenging fools. People are dumping milk in their mouth in the lunchroom. It's amazing.
Yep.
So going back to my main questions, obviously these shutdowns are meant to disrupt traffic and annoy, business owners and stuff.
Certainly, yeah.
Do you feel any guilt about that?
No, not even a little. Like people are dumb, and I think that business owners want to keep their parking spots more than they want more business, because no matter what statistic you look at, foot traffic is going to drive business up over cars in the market.
Yeah.
And so I don't feel bad for doing something that will inevitably be good for the people that are running these businesses.
Yeah, small price to pay.
Right.
We always say, I was talking to Joel and I said, sometimes it feels like the dollar is bigger than God and everything's justifiable under the pursuit of capital. So it's interesting when you hear business owners being like, you are obstructing my business, which is my way to get capital, which is a way for me to survive.
Right.
Thus, I am able to respond with violent means.
Right.
Like when they had the anti-ICE rally take over the freeway in LA.
Yeah.
Almost every comment was like, God, I wish somebody would hit these people because I have to get to work.
But that's the thing. You chose to drive into the city. You know what I mean? So it's like, if that's your only way of getting to work, I get it to some extent, but also you can find somewhere to park and just get to work by other means. And we're not taking it up for hours at a time. So it's like, I don't feel like there is any argument to be had there.
Well, someone could come at you for being ableist.
Yeah.
There's always something.
It is always something.
That's a problem.
Very true. It is a very real problem. But I would challenge you to find somebody who is disabled that is like, yeah, we should keep cars here, actually. I love being hit in my wheelchair by a car going 60 miles an hour. You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
You know what I mean? I feel like anybody that's claiming ableism is probably just trying to find something to throw at you, especially in that type of scenario.
Well, that's the landscape nowadays, man. Amen. That's why it's so hard for people to come together and, have a formidable progressive presence.
Yeah.
Is because everyone's so occupied positioning themselves as being more righteous than the other party.
Holier than thou.
I mean, that's kind of why, in my opinion, that's the story of the Trump victory.
Yeah, that's not a bad takeaway.
Yeah, because people have all these fault lines of division on the left, whereas the conservatives, even if they disagree on major things, they're still a unit.
I always like to say that if you're sowing distrust among, what could be, a progressive front, you should be getting a CIA bag. Like, I don't understand why you guys are doing this for free.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way.
Yeah.
I wonder if CIA bags were delivered just as a straight up direct deposit or if they're laundered somehow.
Good point. I think it probably depends on how involved you are,
Facts. So let's talk about Waymos a little bit. So as I mentioned, the homie Savvy OTR has been tagging some Waymos. I asked him, hey, is this in protest or anything? He said, nah, those cars are just fucking whack.
Yeah.
So I had somebody from Waymo hit me up about legitimate safety concerns. Do you know anything about Waymo and its potential safety loopholes?
Yeah, there's kind of a lot of safety loopholes. I think last November they reported something like having to manually correct Waymos every 3 to 4 minutes or something. It's not a self-driving tech yet, and I think that's one part of it. But I think that there are safety concerns that we can't even address yet. Like there was a story of somebody getting hit by another car and pushed up underneath a Waymo and getting pinned underneath it because the Waymo was like, we don't see anybody here. We're just going to keep going, which things of that nature are not human error, but it's the room for error that you're going to have in a self-driving car at this point, regardless of the company,
Yeah.
We're just not there yet.
I think that it might be a psyop, or maybe not even a psyop, but Waymos are designed to try to not pay Uber drivers.
Yeah.
That was my first thought. I'm like, oh, they're trying to cut that $8 expense.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and it is an $8 expense. They're not getting healthcare. They're not getting anything. They're getting pennies on the dollar. But if you can cut out $8, it makes your bottom line healthier. So.
Do you catch Ubers or anything?
I try not to.
Do you take the bus here?
I did. I took the train here.
That's
and
sick,
I just walked
dude.
it. Yeah.
You're really inspiring me to start taking the bus.
Do it.
No, I feel like fuck it. I'm gonna leave my car at the office.
Yeah. No. And it sucks trying to. Well, I don't know. You might have parking here, but it sucks trying to find parking, going places. It sucks. There's just so many things you don't even realize. But there are times where I'm walking down the freeway and I'm like, damn, this sucks. So I think that you can do it, but I understand people that are like, I don't want to bring my toddler down this road right now.
Yeah, I feel like, I kind of am a little bit blessed growing up in Seattle where you said that you moved, because I grew up in between Capitol Hill, downtown, and I went to mostly schools in the Central District. So I never even had to get a car until you ever heard of a Spodie before?
I don't think so.
It's a Seattle high school slang for outdoor alcohol gatherings. So what will happen is somebody will get a keg, they'll go to a public park, they'll sell cups, or they'll go with a cooler and they'll get cups and people will pour jungle juice and they'll sell the cups for $5.
Yeah.
So cars came into the picture because we had to go far from the city to the wilderness to throw these Spodis.
Right. Yeah.
And so up until then, I had a totally peaceful life with no car.
Yeah. Yeah. So interesting. Yeah.
It was compelled by necessity of another oppressive law.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's because there's no public spaces for people to do that at that age.
Yeah, there should be bars for high schoolers.
I didn't say that. I do think that there needs to be places for young people to gather, and what happens there happens there.
Yeah, I guess the closest thing we have to it is like Alki Beach. I'm trying to think, where else do high school kids get into trouble in Seattle? Alki, the parking lot of Carkeek, the parking lot of South Center Mall. Where else? I haven't been a kid in a long time. Magnuson's pretty good.
I don't even know what that is.
Magnuson Park is not something you need to know about. It's a small park in Northeast Seattle.
Okay.
Northeast Seattle, in my opinion, does not exist.
I was gonna say, that's an area of town I'm never in.
Laurelhurst, Magnuson Park, don't know what's going on. I just know they have like 150 baseball fields.
Oh.
Now, if my dad's watching, you live in Seattle, do you agree that anything past the cut is the north end?
I would say so, but I don't know that I'm the authority.
All right, well now I'm an anti-car activist because me and my dad haven't talked in a couple weeks because he says, Ballard and the U District aren't the north end. The north end starts at 85th. I was like,
man. All right, we're just drawing arbitrary lines at this point.
Yeah, what is this?
Yeah.
But north end, kids from Ballard are like, I'm not from the north end.
Oh.
Total bullshit.
Right, yeah.
Where on the other side, on the south end, everyone's desperate to be from the south end.
Yeah, yeah.
You got people who live near the Mount Baker train station being like, I'm from the south end, and you can't tell them they're wrong because they live off Rainier.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell them they're wrong.
How many anti-car activists are there?
More than you think, I would say. I don't know that I have a specific number ironed out, but I think that it's like a growing sentiment, you know? People don't want to be trapped to their vehicle. I don't know about activists. I feel like that's kind of a word that's been bastardized, but I think that there are a lot.
Okay, how many fools are down for the cause? More than 10,000?
We're talking countrywide?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sick.
Definitely.
Are you guys like mostly anarchists?
I think it varies. I think some people have more of an anarchist slant, and some people are like, I think it varies. I think it varies in ideology a lot. I think the main goal is just to be safe, which is like, I don't know, kind of the most beautiful thing about it.
Would a libertarian be able to get into your fold?
How much do they like kids? Do you know what I mean?
Well, they want to save them a lot.
Yeah.
They want to save them so much they can't stop looking at them.
No. But, you know, if you're walking around as a self-claimed libertarian, I don't know how much you give a shit in general. So,
what kind of bike do you ride?
I have like a shitty little Temu e-bike, and I bought it like 4 years ago. It's beat to shit, and some people are really into like the technical aspects. I just like that it gets me from the places, you know.
So you bike? I'm not going to say where you live because I don't want someone to come. I don't want one of these car executives to come assassinate you.
That'd be sick, yeah, to not.
But do you bike from your house to Starbucks?
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Damn, so you probably got some strong calves.
Something like that.
Are you worried that estrogen is going to fuck that up?
No.
Really?
No, yeah, because the thing about estrogen is you got to eat. So I just be eating way too much now, which has really changed my life because I'm like, damn, I don't feel like ass all the time.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite kind of food?
Oh, man, what's my least favorite kind of food is a better question. But nah, you know, I'm from the South. I really like some fucking collard greens. I love some grits. Really, I love breakfast food. You give me a good platter of breakfast. That's my shit.
You like turkey bacon?
I do. I don't eat pork, so.
Okay, you Muslim?
No, I just don't eat pork. I was raised by a Muslim stepfather.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Holy shit, is he still around?
He is alive, but he's not around.
He's not the homie though. He is though.
We don't rock with bro, no.
Yeah. I had a stepdad too. He was the Seattle Mariners catcher.
Oh shit, okay.
He was a great player, but we also don't rock with bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think vandalism is wrong?
On principle, no. It kind of depends on what you're doing. You know, if you're like running up in the mom and pop breakfast spot and you're like tagging the shit up and it looks bad, it's like there's no argument for it. But I think that the word vandalism is largely just a way to make it seem bad, you know?
Do you feel like a lot of the graffiti writers who came up during COVID when the cops didn't give a shit and they were like painting freeway spots that, you know, you used to go to jail doing, you feel like a lot of those kids have like stolen valor?
I mean, they're still doing it. I think the stolen valor kind of comes from how well you're invested in it. Like if you're just going out there and like doing a little shit tweaker tag and then going back to your house, like I feel like that's stolen valor because you hit like a spot that is hard to get to, and you just kind of didn't even have any integrity with it.
Yeah.
But I think that, I don't know, there's something about standing on the freeway that kind of gives it its own.
You ever read Crime Think before?
I don't think so.
It was like this dope anarchist books that they used to sell back in the day. Oh, yeah. And it was talking about like, you know, it was sort of like an anarchist cookbook, but it was the idea that like petty crime, stuff like vandalism of corporations is a righteous act.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way?
I would say so. Yeah, I would say definitely. I think it is one of the only ways that you individually can cause a bottom line dip, you know, by just going out and kind of fucking shit up, for lack of better words.
Yeah, I was talking to Joel about, the idea that, violence itself, like Joel thinks that property damage is violence. And I would argue that it's not.
Violence against who?
The idea is that you're creating an element of fear, and that through attacking that building, you're psychically attacking the people who preside over it and harming them in some way.
Cry me a river, you know what I mean? Like, if you're in the Amazon building, you know what I mean? If you're in the Tesla building, you know the risk you took by taking that job, you know? And if you start to feel like, oh, I'm afraid of this, I don't like this, go somewhere else. No one's forcing you to be there.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
You ever deal with any heroes? For those who don't know, a hero is a pedestrian who acts as a law enforcement officer in the face of petty crime. Do you ever deal with any heroes in the field who are like, hey, stop?
I don't know. I feel like in Seattle you don't get a lot of that.
Oh man, buddy. I wish you were right.
Really? I haven't personally had to deal with a hero, as it were, but I kind of maybe a little bit more sneaky than just throwing up a sticker on 3rd and Olive.
Yeah. What are some tips you have out there for people who want to get involved with the anti-car movement but are a little bit nervous?
Start small. Just get yourself like a bike. Just get yourself like walking more, even if it's incremental, and start talking to people. Talk to your neighbors. You know, just get involved. There is definitely somewhere around you that is already doing something.
Did you vote in the election?
Yeah. Are you asking who?
Yeah.
Yeah, I voted for Kamala. I whispered ACAB to myself as I wrote it in, but what are you gonna do, man?
No, I feel you, man. And that's saying something, because I feel like almost no one I knew did vote for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
Including myself. And but I feel kind of dumb now.
I don't want to say yes.
Because I got tricked into I interviewed Jill Stein and she kind of psyoped me and was like, yo, it's all the same. Nothing's going to change whether or not it's Kamala Harris or Trump. And pretty much immediately everything changed for the worse.
Yeah.
So now I feel like I wish we could go back and people were able to realize that change takes a lot more time, and that issues like Israel-Palestine aren't going to go away, and you're never going to have a president who is pro-Palestine. It's unfortunate, but it's just true.
And I think that you can bully Kamala into, stop selling arms to Israel, but you're not going to do that with Trump. It's not going to happen. And the odds of it actually happening to Kamala either is insanely low, but I don't know, man. We wouldn't have fucking sweeping tariffs, so.
Yeah, I think that Trump's support of Israel is going to be his downfall.
Yeah, for sure.
Because he's harvested so much insane anti-Semitic shit over the course of the past, 8 to 10 years.
Right.
And he was like, there's this cabal of evil liberal communists that are trying to control us.
He's saying everything but Jewish, yeah.
Yeah, and now he's like, no, I love the Jews. The cabal that I was talking about is actually Jimmy Kimmel and his friends.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Goalpost moving.
Of course, yeah. And we're not the only people to notice that, you know what I mean? Especially when you're one of these freaks that actually believes that shit. You're probably like, dude, what do you mean? I thought you were saying the 14 words a minute ago. What happened?
Yeah, did you see, the Nazi Nick Fuentes?
Yeah, of course.
He was hating on Trump hard the other day.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, shit.
He was like, this guy tricked us from the very beginning. He's owned by Israel. And I'm like, dude, if that guy's turning on you, the kids will too.
Oh,
The Nazi youth.
The Nazi.
Isn't it crazy that there's people from our generation who are into neo-Nazi shit?
I wish I could tell you it's crazy, but man, we didn't do enough to curb that, I don't think.
It's just weird because it's we all grew up online at the same time.
Yeah.
It's crazy to think that white supremacist shit is actually still in our generation.
Yeah. It's hard to believe, but then you go outside and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah. For sure. And to clarify, he's referring to white supremacists being outside, not going outside and making racial observations.
Yes, that is, yeah. Ooh, about to get canceled today.
You go, yeah. You think it's crazy to be racist and you go outside and you're like, Jesus, where are all the white people?
In Seattle, they're there.
Seattle, yeah, I mean, I don't want to talk too much about Seattle. I still like it, and I'm happy that you live there. Because I get in this headspace, bruh, where I'm always talking about how Seattle sucks now. But the fact that there is people holding down the anti-car movement in Seattle gives me some kind of hope.
Yeah, I won't give up. So truthfully, I can't, because I fled from Florida and Texas, and I'm like, well, sticking it out here,
You want to give any message before we head out of here to the people who may be watching at home, thinking about, fuck, I have a car right now. I want to be on the right side of history, but I got to get to work.
Shit, man, do what you can. get a bike, try to find some other way. I'm telling you, the bike is overpowered. Get involved, even if it's not for every day of your trips into work. Do something, make an incremental change. Free Gaza.
Hell yeah, appreciate you, G.
Hell yeah, man.
Dude, I'm straight up about to take the bus home today.
Dude, hell yeah.
You actually inspired me,
Do
bro.
that shit.
So what's your like plan or strategy to get rid of cars if it would work?
Well, I don't know that you can get rid of cars entirely, but I think that reduction is the plan, reduce as much as possible until, boost methods other than just driving everywhere.
How are you getting your message out? How are people discovering your theory?
Yeah, well, just like organizing around, big bike events or like things of that nature.
So it's not just anti-car. It would also mean if your movement succeeded, there would be a drastic increase of buses and trains.
Hell yeah, oh yeah. And if not an increase, then like an increase of service, because a lot of what it is like you wait 40 minutes for a bus that might come. It's like we have some good bones. We used to like have cities that function properly, but now it's just like a gutter through your city for cars. So
if you're so anti-car, do you think it's effective to like actually vandalize or attack cars to like bring awareness?
Depending on what you're doing, right? Like if you have a goal in mind, I think that just like vandalizing all cars is going to get you in trouble and nothing done basically. But if you want to take down a certain company, wink, wink, nod, nod, then I can't say that it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
We see the price of Teslas start to go down. People not wanting to buy them. I think that's a real win.
Apple pie and cars are basically as American as it gets. How can you take on that ethos that if you're anti-car, you're anti-American?
Who gives a shit? I think. I think that like your anti-America sentiment has dropped off these days. I mean, maybe with older folks, but I know a lot of younger folks are like, they don't give a shit. Nobody likes this country really. They like the people in it, but.
So yeah, the younger generation, a lot of them aren't even driving, so that gives momentum to your cause.
Oh yeah.
But they do take Ubers and Waymos.
Yeah.
So do you feel like the young generation's open to taking a bus though? Because there's a big difference between getting on a bus or getting in an Uber.
Right, yeah. I think that the buses will come, as... I think people are more willing to get on trains, to be honest with you. I think it feels like more of a set thing, maybe safer, maybe more of an experience or whatever. I think that buses need to become like... we only buy American buses, and a lot of American buses are like not the greatest buses in the world. So I think that we need to have like a real shift in the type of buses that we run and like like making it feel like you're not a second-class citizen because you're on a bus. And I don't know if the younger generation is open to it now, but I think that it's a step in the right direction to be not as willing to like invest all your money in whatever car. So yeah, I think it's a stepping stone.
So you said we're never going to get rid of cars, so it's like an admission that it's almost like your goal isn't so much to get rid of cars, it's to change the zeitgeist in the Overton window for people to be more embracing of mass transit.
Yeah.
And your younger generation is primed to be swayed in another direction because a lot of them don't even drive.
Yeah, I would say so.
So it's almost like defund police was never really about defunding the police. It was just to create awareness that police, in general, their budgets are so massive as a part of a city's budget.
Oh yeah.
So it's almost like you're doing the same thing. You're not, even though you're anti-car, you're not at the same time. You're just more pro everything else?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I used to love driving a car. Like, I get why people like driving a car. I just think that nobody benefits from having to drive a car.
Yeah, like it's part of the American dream.
Right.
You have to have a house. You have to have a car.
Yeah.
Or else you're not living the full dream.
Yeah, you're like a halfway point. And it's like any car. It's like if you have a Camry, it's like a class thing too, you know, like you're still looked down upon.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, and it's like a lot of other things where it's like a status.
Or if you drive a Tesla, you support Nazis.
Well, maybe a Cybertruck. I feel like there's no excuse there, but.
Well, no, Cybertruck, the reason you buy that is because you want everyone to know how rich you are and you have a small penis.
Yeah, but they're not that expensive. You know what I mean? Like.
80,000 is a lot of money.
Well, fair point. But like, as far as an expensive, nice car. You
But
know,
no, it's interesting. I feel like you're taking a provocative stance in order to create awareness for a better future.
Yeah, but I think we've got too caught up in the weeds on awareness. I think we gotta start doing shit. Because
what does that mean?
Well, you know, you got to start making it the driver's problem. You know, you got to start really de-incentivizing drivers.
How do you do that?
Well, there's things that are like legal methods, like congestion pricing or like paying to drive on certain roads. Or, you know, some people have gone out and spray painted on some Cybertrucks. And I don't know, anything to kind of bully people into not wanting to, you know, take that thing everywhere. I also think inside inner cities, we need to really kind of take back over the streets. You know, like there was a point in time where streets were made for everyone to be on, you know, people, bikes, you know, the grand streetcar era. And I don't think we're ever going to go back to that, but I think that drivers have become too emboldened and feel like the road is theirs.
We're having a housing shortage, you're right. So we need to create more density and more
1000%.
walkable cities,
1000%.
which means the removal of cars.
Yeah. And, yeah, I mean, we need density like yesterday. So it's never going to happen by just everybody gets their like individual parking spot and, you know, drives into the inner city every day. You're just going to build the endless suburb, like Dallas or even LA, you know, just forever expansion.
That's why, Austin and Texas, they're saying they're better policies for home building. It's because they have so much space, whereas San Francisco, there's no space.
Yeah.
It's not like San Francisco and their policies are bad for housing. There's literally no space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think cars and ability to, I mean, we're a frontier nation, so you're going up against some serious American identity.
Yeah.
And it's maybe being provocative is the way to like pierce that bubble.
Could be, definitely. I think so. I also think that you kind of got to be like I feel like we've got, again, lost in the weeds of just like making people aware. You know what I mean? Because it's like we're all aware of how fucked up shit is, but we're all looking at each other like.
Awareness is the first step to making change, but we've been on that step for too long, is what you're saying.
Far too long, since before I was born, to be honest with you. But yeah.
Channel 5 live worldwide, Hollywood and Vine.
Fuck the authority, Channel 5 News. Channel 55. We don't fuck with custers. And 5 is the best number.